Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishdharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya 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 Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Okay, everybody please turn to page 1, introduction, Puja in your Bhagavad-Gitas. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadadhi Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everyone, after me, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki Jai. Shalina Mataji, do you mind reading, please, the introduction puja, the English? Kindly unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Santana Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa and Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrisabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like the desired trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivasa, and all others in the line of devotion.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, let us, we start today, we're doing text 2 of chapter 1. Last week we did the first verse. We just did a brief overview and introduction, and then we did chapter 1. I'm not sure if anyone was absent last week, but just for the purpose of filling the gap, we'll just do a small recap on last week. So we spoke about purpose of studying Bhagavad-Gita. We all study it because there's a goal or a desire that we have in our hearts, or rather we should have in our hearts, right? Just like a student would go to medical school and study to qualify himself as a doctor of medicine. One may go to an engineering college to become a qualified engineer. Likewise, devotees study Bhagavad Gita. The goal is to purify their hearts and to eventually reach our supreme goal, which is back to Godhead, back to Sri Dham Goloka Vrindavan, which is also known as Krishna Lok or Krishna's world. So in the first verse last week, the verse opened with Dhritarashtra, the blind king, asking Sanjaya to tell him what's going on the battlefield. Today we're proceeding with text number 2. If everybody could turn to page 35 in most books. Chapter 1, text 2. Sorry, I know somebody asked me to project the verses on the screen. I actually forgot about it. I hope nobody's battling with referencing the verses today. Okay, can we go to chapter text 2, please? Sanjaya uvacha dristva tu pandavanikam Yudham Duryodhanastata Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravid. So Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military explanation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Anybody would like to read the English, the purport? Ujjwala Rasa?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. Still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjaya could understand his motive in asking about the situation on the battlefield. Sanjaya wanted, therefore, to encourage the despondent king, and thus assured him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjaya therefore informed the king that his son, Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief, Dronacharya, to inform him of the real position. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician, but Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas.
Yes, thank you, Ujjwala Mataji. Okay, so sorry about it. My mouse almost ran away. What happened? Gone blank. Okay, Hare Krishna. Did I go off for a minute? Can everybody see and hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry, my screen just went blank. I don't know what happened. All right. So I'm going to reference to Srila Prabhupada's lecture on this purport. So it's a lecture dated the 9th of July, 1973, recorded in London. So Srila Prabhupada says here that Sanjaya understood that Dhritarashtra didn't want to compromise. Therefore, Sanjay wanted to encourage him. So remember, Sanjay was Dhritarashtra's advisor, and Dhritarashtra was a blind king. Now, Sanjaya could see and hear everything that was happening on the battlefield, even though they were situated far away from the battlefield in the palace. So Sanjay, being a very devoted servant to the blind king, wanted to encourage him. And therefore, Sanjay very nicely referred to Duryodhana as Raja. Raja means king. So in this way, he gave a lot of comfort to Dhritarashtra by addressing his son as the king. He said, he was indirectly saying, don't worry, dear king, you know, your son will be crowned king. So just be positive. In that light, he addressed Duryodhana as Raja or as king. This was just to encourage. Now, Srila Prabhupada says that even though so much was taken away from the Pandavas were even banished to the forest for many years by the Kauravas. They did not have the enjoyment of all, the opulences of the kingdom. But even though that was their situation, and compared to the Kauravas, they had the kingdom, they had all the opulences. They were 100 brothers, they had a big army. But even looking at that, you'll find that the Pandavas, that Arjuna and his brothers, were very, very favored, I would say, because they had Lord Krishna on their side. Now, anybody who has Krishna on their side or God on their side is naturally protected. They are protected and they generally become very victorious. So that was the case of the Pandavas, right? So you'll find at the end of the war, they did emerge victorious. Now, sorry, I just want to stop here. Last week, I was asked a question, I think by Paramatma Prabhu. He asked why the land of Kurukshetra was a holy place. And I did say that I will get back on that point. So I'm just going to touch base on that for a bit. Let's see how to share the screen again. Any idea how to share the screen? Okay, I can't find my share button here. I wanted to share the screen. Some reason, I wanted to share pictures of, yeah, I just don't see. Oh, there we go. There we go. I've got it. So I just want to show you a picture. Right? Can everybody see that? The holy banyan tree. Can you see that? Haribol, Paramatma Prabhu?
Nothing no, Mata, I can't.
You can't?
No.
Okay. I'm not sure why. Okay, now?
It's coming, Mataji. Yes,
yes,
you can see it.
Right. This is the holy banyan tree in the holy land of Kurukshetra, where the Bhagavad-Gita was spoken. I don't know how many people have been to Kurukshetra, but it's very important and very nice to go to this holy land. This is where Bhagavad-Gita was spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. It's a place of pilgrimage. So if you ever get a chance, please do go to Kurukshetra. It's not so far off from Vrindavan. You know, you can go from Vrindavan. I think it's sort of in between Rishikesh, Haridwar, and Vrindavan, somewhere there, or from Delhi. It's not far from Delhi, right? There's another picture here. It's a kund at Kurukshetra. So basically, this is what it was. You see, there was a king that ruled at that point. His name was King Kuru. King Kuru was a very pious person, and the Lord was very pleased with him. So the Lord gave him a benediction. The Lord said to him that this land will forever be holy, and anybody who leaves his body here will attain the heavenly planets. And also, that land was named after the king, hence the name Kurukshetra, right? King Kuru. It's his land. Kshetra is land. Right. Okay. Right. So that was, is that okay, Paramatma Prabhu? I think you asked the question last week.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
All right. And obviously it got further more holy because the battle happened on that field, and Lord Krishna himself was present there, as I said to you last week. Lord Krishna and his devotees. So anywhere where the Lord and his devotees are present, it automatically becomes sanctified. It becomes a holy place and a place of pilgrimage, you can say. Right. So now, you see, Dhritarashtra's fear was that holy place or the holy land would have an influence, rather a positive influence on Arjuna and his brothers, because Arjuna and his brothers were already pious people and the land was holy. So when he asked Sanjay, you know, to tell him what's going on the battlefield, he was very, very fearful in his heart, right? Because at the back of his mind, he understood that victory would be in the hands of the Pandavas, right? Now, Duryodhana, after he saw this military arrangement of the Pandavas, he himself became fearful, right? When we read the next verse, you will pick that up. At the latter part of this purport, you'll see here, I'll read it out, but Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. Now, there was somebody behind this military arrangement of the Pandavas, a character, right? We'll speak a little bit more on the background and who this character was just now. It's actually very interesting. Right? Now, as I said before, Lord Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas, so they would naturally be victorious. Anybody who has the Lord on their side is a fortunate person. But of course, you've got to become a devotee person, you've got to qualify yourself. So I think everybody present in this meeting is heading that way, and I'm sure most of you already are. Right, so let's pick up where Duryodhana approached his teacher, Dronacharya. Right, Dronacharya was a Brahmin, so some may wonder now, if Dronacharya is a Brahmin, what is he doing on the battlefield, and how is he assisting in this battle? Because Dronacharya was very, very well versed in the martial arts, in military, in warfare. You see, Dronacharya and Drupada, they were both students of the same Gurukul. So I'm going to share another slide with you. Okay, and we'll get a little bit into the background of this. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, Mataji, we can see.
All right. Right, you will find that, okay, I think rather we just proceed to the next verse, text 3. Everybody can turn to the text 3, chapter 1, text 3. Let us read that verse. Pashetam Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahitam Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. Now I wanted to read this verse because it's very appropriate. I want to draw your attention to the latter part of this verse where Duryodhana very cleverly addresses the son of Drupada. He goes to his teacher and he says, Tava Shishya Dhimata. So he's not saying the name of Drupada's son, who is Drishtadyumna. He's saying, your intelligent disciple. Tava Shishyena, your disciple. Dhimata. Dhimata means very intelligent. So there's a reason for this. There's a reason why he's addressing his teacher Dronacharya in these words. So let's go to the next slide and see the background. Right, so the story behind Duryodhana's diplomatic statement. Before we get into this, Prabhu, some of you all wanted to read the Sanskrit. Can you please indicate by show of hand? Who wanted to read the Sanskrit? Haribol, you can unmute yourself. If you want to read the Sanskrit verse. Okay, shall I just proceed then? All right. Okay, so Drupada and Dronacharya went to the same Gurukul, right? Gurukul is a place where students go to get knowledge from their gurus. So they learn all sorts of arts, military, they get academic education and sports and etc. Right? That was the way it was done back in the day. Look at this picture here. Can you see? King Drupada and Dronacharya, they were both students on an equal level in Gurukul, right? So Drupada was the son of a king. So he was very rich in material opulence. And Dronacharya, on the other hand, he was the son of a poor Brahmana. But he was very good. He was actually excellent in war skills. And he helped his friend along the way, his friend being Drupada. He helped him along the way in Gurukul with the different tasks and assignments, so to speak, that they were handed. Because he had the knack of it, he had the skill. So Drupada was very, very grateful for this, right? And after their studies were completed, they parted ways. And before they parted ways, he promised his friend Drona half of his kingdom. He said, I really want to pay you back for all the assistance that you've given me while we were at Gurukul. And when I do become king, I'm going to give you half my kingdom. But of course, Dronacharya did not accept this, right? He said that, don't worry about it, my dear friend. I don't want half your kingdom. But when the time arises, when the need arises, I will certainly approve. they parted. After many, many years, Dronacharya was a very poor Brahmin, and he battled in the material sense for opulence, right? He battled very, very much. And it came to a point where he reflected on the words of his friend Drupada. And he thought, let me approach my friend since he made this offer. He's a very rich king. Surely he's going to help me and he will keep to his word. So he went back to his friend Drupada, King Drupada. And when he got there, he was very, very disappointed. Because now that the king had all this opulence and enjoying this kingdom, he didn't want to be associated with this poor Brahmin friend. He felt ashamed to be associated with a poor person. So Dronacharya was very upset about this. He was actually very, very angry. And he decided that he was going to take revenge. So he left his Brahminical studies aside, and then he started teaching warfare. Started teaching war skills to the Kshatriyas. Remember we spoke last week about the Kshatriyas, that they're the kingly or princely class of men, and it's their duty to protect society. Now Arjun and Duryodhana and his brothers, they all fell under the Kshatriya class of men. So Arjun was one of the students, and Arjun was very, very, very good at archery. Very soon, his teacher Dronacharya picked up on this. He realized the great skills that Arjuna had. So when the students finished, they asked their guru what he wanted for dakshina. Guru dakshina means you repay your, well, of course, you can't really repay your parents and your guru, but as a token of respect and as a token of appreciation, you give some dakshina to you. Then Dronacharya said, fine, if you want to give me the guru dakshina, then I would like for you to capture King Draupad. Capture him and bring him to me, wage war against, direct war, and bring him to me as a prisoner. So, of course, the Kshatriyas, the students were very happy to fulfill the desire of their guru. And they went off on this mission, and they won the war and brought this King Drupad to Dronacharya, their teacher. So you will see this on the slide here. See, King Drupad bound by ropes. Can you all see that? He was brought back to their teacher Dronacharya as a prisoner. Now King Drupad came before Dronacharya, and he appeared surfacely to be very regretful about this whole situation. However, in his heart, he wasn't regretful. He was actually very, very revengeful. He wanted to take revenge now, again, on Dronacharya. So King, he then did many years of prayer, like, austerity, to beget a son who would kill Dronacharya. Finally, his desire was fulfilled, and he got a son who was named Drishtadyumna. Right? Drishtadyumna later on engaged in war. He was on the side of the Kauravas, that's on the side of King Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana and them. And he killed, he was on the side of the Pandavas, and he killed Dronacharya. Right. So this was a diplomacy of Duryodhana. He wanted to draw attention to his teacher's mistake. I'll call it mistake in inverted commas, because it wasn't really a mistake. If you look at the mindset of Dronacharya, he was a Brahmin. He was a very liberal Brahmin, true to his word. So he said, when he knew very well that he was going to be killed by this Drishtadyumna, right? But it didn't bother him. When he was teaching his students, he treated all of them alike. And he gave all the secrets of warfare to this student of his, Drishtadyumna, knowing that he was going to be killed by his hands. He didn't hold back any information. Right? So that is the story behind Duryodhana having said what he said, referred to this line here, Tava Shishyena Dhimata. You're a very, very intelligent disciple, son of you're very intelligent. Okay, I'm just wanting to see if there's anything in the chat box here. Because I asked the question before if anybody wanted to read the Sanskrit. I didn't get any feedback. I know some Prabhus did indicate earlier on that they wanted to read. Please feel free to read. Okay, then we shall proceed. Right. Then Prabhupada further elaborates on this verse. Right? Duryodhana and Bhishma, Prabhupada says, they joined the Kauravas. Now, Dronacharya being the teacher and Bhishma being the grandfather, or rather the great-grandfather, one may wonder, why did they choose sides? Why did they side with Duryodhana and Pati? Why not with Arjuna and his brothers? It may appear to be unfair, but there's a reason for this. You see, at that time, the financial control was in the hands of the Kauravas. They were the political leaders at the time, because their father was the king. He was acting king at the time. So the political power lied in their hands. And because of this, they were providing, the Kauravas were providing financial assistance to Dronacharya, Bhishma, and Pati. Now, if you are taking financial assistance, if somebody is feeding you and providing you, clothing you, providing you with all your necessities, you naturally become indebted to them, correct? You become indebted to them. So because of this, they felt that they were indebted to them. They had to, and the political reins, so to speak, were in the hands of the Kauravas. They had to join in their force, in their army. But it doesn't matter that they joined with the Kauravas, because Arjuna and his brothers, they were devotees of Krishna and they had Krishna in their hearts. Therefore, they had Krishna on their side. Right, further on, Krishna also revealed, Prabhupada says, that this is a family feud, right? So he didn't want to really get in between and pick sides. So he thought now he's going to remain neutral. And to comfort Arjuna, he said to Arjuna, don't worry, Arjuna, I will become your chariot driver. And that's how he became Arjuna's chariot driver. I see there's a question in the chat box. We'll take that at the end. So we spoke last week as well, you know, Krishna is so kind, he's so merciful. The more a devotee serves him, the more he wants to serve the devotee. So if you look at the cover of Bhagavad-Gita, it's so beautiful when you see Krishna, you know, sitting on the chariot and actually being the chariot driver of Arjuna. It's such a beautiful picture. Right? That's the mercy of the Lord. Okay, so I think we covered what we needed to cover in those two texts. Can I leave the chat box open for contributions on these two verses? Ujjwala Rasa, can we hear from you, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ujjwala Rasa is just for, if I may just add, she's a very nice devotee, very advanced devotee. She studied Bhakti Shastri with me. And,
not advanced.
Yes. And she can share a lot of realizations with us on this verse. I'm sure you'll be happy to share something, anything.
Okay. First sentence in the purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. So it shows that Dhritarashtra knew already that he was fearful actually, but he didn't display it. He knew that the Pandavas were pious and they were on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra was a pious place as well. And he also knew that Lord Krishna was present there. And wherever Krishna is present, there's always victory. So Dhritarashtra knew all this in his heart, but he was afraid to reveal it.
Correct. Thank you very much. It's a very valid contribution. Thank you, Ujjwala Rasa. Anybody else? Okay, there's a question in the chat box. Somebody is asking, what is the English name for the banyan tree? Shalina Mataji. Okay.
Yes.
So banyan tree is a fig tree. It's a fig tree. It's a plant that grows on another plant. So we can read up a little more on this, like, if you want to get into detail, but that's, I think, its origin. It's considered to be a very auspicious tree for us in Vedic terms. The banyan tree, there's a whole chapter that actually deals with this. We'll find that later in the Bhagavad-Gita. I think the banyan tree is the tree that where the roots grow up and the branches grow down. There's a whole significance to that. And we'll explore that further later on in further chapters of the Bhagavad-Gita. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji Sarvanga.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, can I add one point, Mataji? This banyan tree
Yes.
here in India.
Yes.
Here India, it is especially South India, here Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. In the banyan tree, they tie some yellow cloths and the bangles, especially Matajis.
Yes.
And it's really, as you say, it's very auspicious. They if something they want, some desire fulfilled, they will tie something in the banyan tree, like a yellow cloth and the bangles and other things. They have some Vedic, it says Mataji. So that when after tie within 15-20 days, the desire will be fulfilled. Like that, they have here some thoughts, Mataji. Even nowadays also, some places I could see.
Okay, Prabhu, sorry, I didn't get the last part. What did you say? They tie a cloth around the tree and then?
Yes, Mataji, they tie like yellow cloths and this is especially Mataji's bangles.
Okay.
They put Mataji, they tie bangles, and if they have some desire and they do, if like that, the desire will be fulfilled, Mataji.
Desires. Okay, so they did to fulfill their desires. All right. I think sometimes maybe Matajis pray to the banyan tree and tie bangles, etc., for the long life of their husbands. Is that right?
Yes, like that, Mataji. So many is there, Mataji.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us, Prabhu. Right. Shall we just proceed to the next verse then? We've got some time. Okay. So we can proceed to text number 4. Still on chapter 1, text number 4, page 36 in my book. Atra Shura Maheshvasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Vyuddhano Viratascha Dropatascha Maharataha. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters, Vyuddhana, Virata, and Dropada. Hare Krishna. Paramatma Prabhu, can you please read the text for us? Paramatma Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Purport. Even though Drishtadumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Thank you, Mataji.
So, thank you. So you can see the fear surfacing, or the fear of Duryodhana surfacing. Although Duryodhana came across as a brave person, he put on a very brave front, but in his heart, he was very fearful because he knew the strength of Arjuna and his brothers. He also knew that they were pious, and that Krishna was very affectionate towards them, because they were devotees. So this military force was arranged by, on the Pandava side, this military arrangement was made by Drishtayumna. Remember that he was, all the secrets of warfare was revealed to him by Dronacharya. So he learned all the secrets and he arranged it expertly. Now you see also, Duryodhana, he spoke to his teacher Dronacharya in such a manner because he didn't want Dronacharya to become lenient with the opposing party. He knew that Dronacharya had affection for Arjuna in particular. Arjuna was one of his very good students, and he was affectionate towards Arjuna. So he didn't want Dronacharya to become lenient or compromise in any way. He wanted Dronacharya to fight forcefully with all his strength, because he wanted to win the war. He wanted to be crowned king at the end of the day. Right? That was the mindset of Duryodhana thus far. So let us proceed with the next verse. I think we're doing okay today. We're going on to text 5. Tristaketus Chikitanaha Kashi Rajascha Viryavan Kuruchit Kunti Bodhascha Saibhascha Narapungavaha. They are also great heroic powerful fighters like Tristaketu, Chikitana, Kashiraj, Kuruchit, Kunti Bhoja, and Saibhaya. Now these were all fighters on the side of Arjuna and his brothers. And they were very great warriors as well. You can see how Duryodhana is getting progressively fearful. Any comments thus far? Any questions thus far? Basically, now we're just being introduced to all the different characters on the battlefield. You're going to come across a lot of names. And remember that the Bhagavad-Gita is an extract from the Mahabharata. Everybody familiar with the Mahabharata? The great epic of the Mahabharata, right? So Bhagavad-Gita was spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which was part of the Mahabharata story. It's an extract from it, but a very important point for all of us and for us to apply in our lives. Right. Okay, next verse, text 6. Sarath Prabhu, would you like to read the text?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna.
6th one?
Verse 6, chapter 1.
Verse 6.
Yeah.
Oh, 6th Mataji, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. There are the mighty Yuddhamanya, the very powerful Uddhamajya, right, Mataji? Uddhamajya, the son of Subhadra and the son of Draupadi. All these warriors are great charioteer fighters.
Yes. Okay, so shall we read the Sanskrit now? Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamajascha Viryavan Dobhadro Draupadyascha Sarva Eva Maharataha. Text 7, can we proceed? Text 7. Ashmakam tu vishishtaye tani bodhat vijottama nayaka mama sanyasya samgnartam tan pravimite. But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. So there's Duryodhana saying, now he wants to boast about his military force. He's trying to comfort himself. Correct. He's trying to comfort himself. So he goes on to tell his teacher, to Dronacharya, doesn't matter about the Pandavas. Yes, they're very expertly arranged. Let me tell you about my military force. So he's also trying to encourage Dronacharya now. Don't worry about what's on the other side. You know what? We are very strong and we're actually going to win this war. So he's basically just creating like a positive atmosphere. And then you're going to see that later on, he's going to try and throw his teacher up. You know, like how sometimes when we want a favor from somebody, we try and flatter them. Okay, so he's going to speak, he's very, very clever, Duryodhana. You know, and that's why earlier on we see he spoke in such a political manner to Dronacharya, and he's going to go further now, and it'll unfold in further texts how expertly he speaks. Shall we read one more? We've got 10 minutes. Let's move on to text 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitam Jayaha Ashvatama Vikarnascha Soma Dhatistatevacha. Everybody, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Veronica Mataji, would you like to unmute and read this translation, please?
They are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatam, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Purishvara, who are all victorious in battle.
Thank you. You want to read the purpose, please?
Yeah.
Yes, go on.
Purpose.
Haribo?
Must I read the purport?
Yes, please.
No.
Yes, please.
Okay. Purpose.
Please read
Duryodhana. Okay. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, and Ashvatam is the son of Dronacharya. And Somadatti or Burishvara is the son of the king of the Pali caste. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, and he was born of Queen Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This verse is quite a mouthful. There's so many characters here, and someone's related to the other, and there's pastimes and backgrounds, stories to each of these characters, and it can actually get quite detailed. So I'm going to actually leave this for next week. We can elaborate further on this next week. All right. Any offerings, any shares? Paramatma Prabhu, anything from your side? Any questions?
Mataji, no, I'm okay. But Mataji, could you explain how the Pandavas were born and also the Kauravas, you know? There was Queen Kunti, how she got this boon. If you can just cover a little bit about that.
Yeah, that goes into a lot of detail, Prabhu. It will take some time, so I'd rather cover that next week.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes quite detailed.
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Anything else? Okay, I'll give you all a bit of a background next week on maybe the history. The two brothers, Pandava and the blind king Dhritarashtra. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a background there, and then on the Queen Kunti Devi, very prominent character in the Mahabharata, very dear devotee of the Lord. The special prayers offered by Queen Kunti in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Very nice to read that prayer. If you get a chance, you can just go to Srila Prabhupada's database and look it up. Read the prayer, read the English meaning. Very, very powerful. Very elevated personality.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, Mataji Sarvanga.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Mataji, would you recommend some any Mahabharatam which is authority can read, Mataji? Because I like to read long time because I don't know which Mahabharatam is authority. Because in ISKCON there are some devotees also written, but one more proper disciple is I think Krishna Dharma Prabhu. He is also written Mahabharata. And could you please recommend Mataji some Mahabharatam is?
Okay, all right. Okay, Prabhu, my recommendation to anybody, everybody, yourself as well, just refer to Srila Prabhupada's Veda base. Because in his Veda base, you'll get everything. All the books that Srila Prabhupada wrote is on the Veda base.
Yeah.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll try and find the link and we'll post it on the WhatsApp group chat.
Yeah. Yes.
And then from there, everybody can reference.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So we've got 5 minutes. Let's end up with Nrsingadev's pranams. And while we're doing these pranams, I'd like to just focus on His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Swami Maharaj, whom I'm sure everybody know now is not doing too well health-wise. So let's offer some heartfelt prayers to Maharaj whilst doing this Nrsingadev pranams. Okay, can I ask Ujjvala Rasa to please lead the Nrsingadev pranams? I'm going to mute myself. Thank you.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha
Shilatankanikalaye
Shilatankanakalaye
To Nishimho Parato Nishimho
Ito Narshingo Parito Narshingo
Yato Yato Yami Tato Nishimho
Yato Yato Yami Tato Narshingo
Bahi Nishimho Hirade Nishimho
Bahir Narshingo Hirdaye Narshingo
Narasimhim Sharanam Prapade
Narasingamadhim Sharanam Prapadye
Navakara Kamalabare Makam Adbhuta Shringham Dalita Hiranyakashipo Tanu Singham Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare
Avapara Kamalavare Nakam Madhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tajupindam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Jaya Jagadish Hare.
केशवधृतानर हरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
Jaya Nishingadev, 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 Nishingadev.
जय नृसिंहदेव 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 जय नृसिंहदेव
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for that, Mataji. Okay. All glories to the assembled devotees. Namo Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivargacharya Stotra. His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Mathura Dham Mayapur Jagannath Puri Padarpur Arvade Kurukshetra Dham ki jai. Dwarika Dham Ayodhya Dham ki jai. Shri Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktavrinda ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So we meet again next week, Saturday.
Thank you, Sarvanga Sundari Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.